wasn't so awesome. Rallies, including those famously filmed by Lily Riefenstahl.
Hey, Father? Father Fuchs. Look familiar?
Missed you at lunch.
Good.
Wobei ich das auch gar nicht verstehe, dass sie das da tun. Also ich meine, das reicht doch einmal im Land. Da hat Nürnberg doch viel Geschichte als außer das schon was auch nach
Schön, dass Sie alle hier sind, meine Damen und Herren. Nachdem wir einen ambitionierten Redeablauf und einen ebenso ambitionierten Zeitplan haben, wage ich es Ihnen vorzuschlagen, die Begrüßung en bloc abzuwarten und hinterher dann für alle den Applaus zu spenden. Ich begrüße ganz herzlich in unserer Mitte und wir sind stolz darauf, dass er gekommen ist. Es ist uns eine Ehre. Verbrechen aus den Vereinigten Staaten. Ich freue mich sehr, dass von denen, die mitfinanziert haben, Herr Bernd Neumann, der Kulturstaatsminister bei uns ist, und Frau Dr. Beate Merck, die bayerische Staatsministerin der Justiz, in deren Gebäude wir hier sozusagen fremd wohnen mit dem Memorium. Mit ihr begrüße ich alle Botschafter, Exzellenzen, die Damen und Herren des konsularischen Korps, die Abgeordneten des Bundestags, des Bayerischen Landtags, die Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus dem Nürnberger Stadtrat, die sich diesen Fragen im Rahmen der Vereinten Nationen widmen sollten.
Zum ersten Mal in der Geschichte der Menschheit sollten Kriegsverbrechen auf der Grundlage des Völkerrechts geahndet werden. Nürnberg wurde zum Gerichtsort bestimmt. Mit dem nahezu unzerstört gebliebenen Schwurgerichtssaal des Justizgebäudes fanden die Sieger einen geeigneten Raum zur Durchführung des Tribunals, das als die Nürnberger Prozesse in die Geschichte einging. Auf der Anklagebank saßen 21 führende Repräsentanten des Naziregimes, unter ihnen Hermann Göring, Reichsmarschall und Oberbefehlshaber der Luftwaffe, Hans Frank, Generalgouverneur von Polen, Julius Streicher, Joachim von Ribbentrop, Reichsaußenminister und Wilhelm Keitel, Chef des Oberkommandos der Wehrmacht. 4 Anklagepunkte wurden ihnen vorgeworfen: Verschwörung, Verbrechen gegen den Frieden, Kriegsverbrechen und Verbrechen gegen die Menschlichkeit. Die Anklage wurde von den 4 Siegermächten USA, Großbritannien, Sowjetunion und Frankreich erhoben und das Verfahren nach angelsächsischem Recht abgehalten. Am 20. November 1945 hielt der amerikanische Chefankläger Robert Jackson seine berühmte Eröffnungsrede.
The privilege of opening the first trial in history for crimes against the peace of the world imposes a grave responsibility. The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored.
Nacheinander wurden die 4 Anklagepunkte von den Vertretern der Siegermächte vorgetragen und belegt durch Dokumente, Filmaufnahmen, Fotografien und Zeugenaussagen. Zum ersten Mal erfuhr die Welt von den unfassbaren Gräueltaten, die zwischen den Jahren 1933 und 1945 in deutschem Namen begangen worden sind. Nachdem die Anklage abgeschlossen war, bekamen die Verteidiger die Gelegenheit, die Unschuld ihrer Mandanten durch Gegenbeweise und eigene Zeugenbefragungen zu belegen. Im Kreuzverhör konnten sich die Angeklagten selbst zu den Vorwürfen äußern. Ihre Unschuld an den begangenen Verbrechen begründeten sie fast immer mit der alleinigen Verantwortung Adolf Hitlers.
Sie wussten nicht in welchem Ausmaß, aber sie wussten, dass es eine Politik gab, die auf die Ausrottung der Juden hinzielte.
Nein, auf die Auswanderung der Juden und nicht auf ihre Ausrottung. Ich wusste nur, dass in Einzelfällen in dieser Richtung Vergehen vorgekommen war.
Fast ein Jahr lang dauerte der Prozess gegen die Hauptkriegsverbrecher von Nürnberg. Am 1. Oktober 1946 verkündete der Vorsitzende Richter Sir Geoffrey Lawrence die Urteile.
Hermann Göring, death by hanging. Alfred Jodl, death by hanging.
Von den 21 Angeklagten wurden 12 zum Tode durch den Strang verurteilt. Daneben gab es langjährige Freiheitsstrafen und auch Freisprüche.
Konstantin von Donner, 15 years in prison. Fuchs, death by hanging. Stephen S, imprisonment for life.
Das Ende des Zweiten Weltkrieges liegt über 65 Jahre zurück. Wir müssen jetzt denjenigen die Fragen stellen, die diese Zeit selbst erlebt haben. Was wir heute versäumen zu fragen, es bleibt ungefragt und unbeantwortet. Ich freue mich deswegen ganz besonders, dass Benjamin Ferenc hier zu uns sprechen wird, und ich danke Ihnen dafür, dass Sie dies tun.
Процесс самый крупный и значительный в истории мировой цивилизации. Суд народов, а именно таким был, по сути, международный трибунал, стал ответом на чудовищные военные преступления, преступления против мира и человечности. Вслед за уставом Организации Объединенных Наций, закрепившим незыблемость итогов Второй мировой войны, Нюрнбергский процесс был в числе важнейших шагов, предпринятых для того, чтобы подобное никогда не могло повториться. Вынесенный на нем приговор довершил военный крах гитлеризма, его морально-политическим и правовым разгромом. Именно в Нюрнберге объединенными усилиями были юридически закреплены результаты победы сил мира и прогресса, признаны преступными человеконенавистническая идеология, основные организационные структуры и в целом практика нацизма. Несмотря на весь трагизм и многомиллионные жертвы Второй мировой войны, наибольшую часть из которых принесла на алтарь победы моя страна, вопрос о мести перед нами не стоит. Советский Союз сделал все для того, чтобы Нюрнбергский трибунал не стал расправой победителей над побежденными. Впервые о необходимости проведения над преступниками международного суда, в котором должны быть обвинения и защита, было сказано 14 октября 1942 года в заявлении советского правительства об ответственности гитлеровских захватчиков и их сообщников за злодеяния, совершаемые ими в оккупированных странах Европы.
And have this opportunity to represent the United Kingdom government. Words here today to have the same impact. But it's right that as we now open this venue for people today and for future generations. It will serve as a place of remembrance. It will mark the trial's importance to the establishment of an international criminal jurisdiction. And I'm proud of the role the United Kingdom played in the trials alongside our allies. As President of the Tribunal, Lord Justice Sir Geoffrey Lawrence quickly set a tone of efficiency and dignity.
From this place and from this day forth began a new era in the history of the world. The Nuremberg trials are so historic because they established the principle that no person is above the law. In words spoken on that opening day of the cases, 65 years ago today exactly, November 21st, 1945, by the U.S. Chief Prosecutor, Justice Robert Jackson, who declared that the law shall not stop with the punishment of petty crimes by little people. It must also reach men who possess themselves of great power and make deliberate and concerted use of it to set in motion evils that leave no home in the world untouched. The trials at Nuremberg laid the foundation of a system for the enforcement of international criminal law, promising justice for victims of widespread atrocities across the globe. Yet the impact of these trials was hardly inevitable. In his opening statement, Justice Jackson described the tribunal as novel and experimental. And for nearly half a century after the Nuremberg trials, it seemed that the model of justice established here would remain exceptional and singular. But in the early 1990s, as ethnic cleansing was in full rage in Yugoslavia, when innocent men, women, and children were being murdered and raped, the world once again responded to wrongs so calculated, so malignant, so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored. To use again those opening words from Justice Jackson's statement. The UN Security Council established an international court, the International Criminal Tribunal, for the former Yugoslavia. The international community's response was directly inspired by Nuremberg. And indeed, its statutory definition of crimes against humanity came directly, word for word, from the Nuremberg Charter. Unlike Nuremberg, however, the Yugoslavia Tribunal was not 800,000 human beings in a period of only 100 days. The natural response was to create an international tribunal to judge the perpetrators. Other international tribunals had followed, such as the Special Court for Sierra Leone and the Extraordinary Chambers of the Courts of Cambodia. And there is now a permanent international criminal court. A court which is focused, since it came into full operation in 2003, on cases of mass atrocities against innocent civilians. Cases that the United States, though not a party, supports and to which it urges all states, parties, and non-parties alike to provide cooperation and assistance. The legacy of Nuremberg lives in the international courts of the 21st century, not only in the principle that powerful leaders must be held to account, and in the universal norms established here and now set forth in their statutes, but the words and the work of the lawyers and judges that served in this palace of justice serve us still. I can say from my own experience as a prosecutor in two of these later tribunals that one could hardly begin a trial without reviewing again the eloquent statements delivered by the prosecutors in opening their historic cases. The decisions of the judges are applied directly to current questions. I recall in the trial of the leaders of what was called the hate media of Rwanda, a case I led in Arusha, nothing was as persuasive in determining what speech crossed the line into criminality as the analysis of the judges here, who distinguished the cases of the two men who were tried for incitement through the Nazi media in their decision to condemn Julia Streicher and to acquit Hans Fritzsche. We have also learned important lessons from what followed after Nuremberg in Germany itself. Practitioners of international justice today recognize that one of the most enduring legacies of Nuremberg took root when national courts in Germany took up prosecution of Nazis. The lesson taught by this experience is that for international prosecutions to have a lasting and real difference in the daily lives of peoples, they need to be followed by trials in the places where the perpetrators lived, where they can be judged by the people whose humanity they betrayed. This lesson is being followed in the War Crimes Chamber in Bosnia and in state courts in Serbia and Croatia. It is recognized in the principle of complementarity in the International Criminal Court and framed. It is also important to remember that it was an international effort that achieved justice at Nuremberg and established the legacy of which I have spoken. While we Americans often cite the words of Justice Jackson, he was the U.S. Chief Prosecutor, responsible for leading the arguments on count one of the indictment of the 22 Nazi leaders. He was joined by UK Chief Prosecutor Sir Hartley Shawcross, by USSR Chief Prosecutor General R.A. Rudenko, and by French Chief Prosecutor Francois Menthon, who had the lead on counts 2, 3, and 4, respectively. The historic judgment issued on October 1st, 1946, bore the imprint of contributions of judges from these four countries, each drawn from very different legal traditions. That experience teaches us how much can be established when nations work together for a common objective. The world is very different now, but cooperation remains of paramount importance. In that regard, it is great to see the ever closer relationship that has developed between Russia and NATO, as shown by the participation of President Medvedev at the NATO summit this very weekend, and the partnership and agreements that the foreign minister described. It was the common effort of great nations that made possible the achievement of justice at Nuremberg. It is through similar common efforts of nations that justice can be achieved for the victims of mass atrocities everywhere in the world. Thank you.
Well, my time is very short, so please, I'm a short speaker, but my time is so limited that you'll pardon me if I skip the niceties and go directly to the substance. I want to say at the outset, however, how very pleased I am to have heard all of the speeches here today, all of them, without exception. When I left Germany for the first time after World War II and left Nuremberg, my biggest regret was that I never heard from any German saying, "I'm sorry." The absence of remorse, even on the part of the defendants who were mass murderers, was very disappointing to me. And I would never have believed that I would come back 60 years later and hear a completely different voice and a different plan in the same country. So I'm touched by that, and I'm grateful for that, and I want to thank you and congratulate you for all of that. Now, I was a combat soldier in World War II, wearing the uniform of the United States. I landed on the beaches of Normandy and fought through all of Europe. I was shooting down with the anti-aircraft battalion and the buzz bombs in England. I was there when we destroyed the city of St. Lo and turned it into dust because we had to break through. I crossed the Rhine on a pontoon bridge with a jeep in the Battle of the Bulge, the final battle of the war. General Patton said, "Every man who can carry a gun goes to the front." It was a little difficult for me to carry a gun. I went to the front as well. And I was assigned by Patton's headquarters to become a war crimes investigator because we were preparing, as pointed out the Minister of War. The Germans had been warned, Fort and Bücher, the transports that came in, witness testimony, photographers. I've seen the crematoria with the bodies packed outside and the bodies burning inside. I have seen SS men who were captured by the prisoners, beaten to death, burned alive. I have seen the destruction of German cities, of French cities, British cities. I've seen all of that. Maybe that's why they call me an Augensäule. But being a witness is not significant. Nuremberg trials following the trial by Jackson and the others. Jackson was the lead man in those trials. You've heard him quoted here repeatedly, and I will pick up on that quote. Because it's not enough to make declarations in time of war which sound nice or after the war. What you do about it. And so I was troubled with the question, what can I do to prevent this type of crime continuing? It's not enough to try a few criminals as a sample. My goodness, I see my picture over there. You've noticed I haven't changed a bit. I had the steps to the way too. Well, the point was, in that trial and others, it was not vengeance. Minister Lavrov was pointing out. I said very specifically, vengeance is not our goal. What we seek here is a new rule of law which will allow all people, regardless of race or creed, to live in peace and dignity. Because the Einsatzgruppen and the other murderers killed millions of people because they didn't share the faith, the religion, the ideology of their executioners. And I thought that was a horrible thing, and I still do it. And I thought it all my life. And so at a certain point, I decided I was going to give up the practice of law and devote myself to the problem of trying to prevent it from happening again in our jurisdiction. Or the other crimes as well is subject to trial. The ICC is out of the picture. Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? because you still want to be free to attack your neighbors in violation of the UN Charter, using armed might, with nobody to control you. That is the wish of some people, in good faith believing that people who have a contrary view are dreamers, idle dreamers. It goes back to von Moltke, some of you know your history, who said, a peaceful world without war is an idle dream. It's even a bad dream. So we have still, despite all these lovely statements, which are really moving and no doubt sincere, despite all that, we take no measures to criminalize aggression. The main object of the Nuremberg trials, the main step forward of the Nuremberg trials. And you can do it in your national jurisdictions. It's been mentioned that it's part of the basic law of Germany, the Grundgesetz. Judge Carl sent me the text of the law at one time when we were discussing this. The Japanese wrote in their constitution, immediately after the war, Article 9A, no aggression coming from them. Other nations are doing the same. The more that you do that, the more difficult it is for people to commit the crime with impunity. Now, the object is not to punish people for the crime of aggression or crimes against humanity. The object is to prevent those crimes. By the time you're punishing, you have failed. And how do you prevent a crime? Do you prevent it by telling the criminals you will never be tried in an international court? That's no way to prevent crime. That encourages crime. And that is what we're doing. And the public doesn't seem to know. Maybe some of them don't care. I care, and I know. And all of the information, I can't go on more because I've only got a few minutes and that's it. You'll find my views articulated in many books, many articles, television interviews, documentaries. Just put my name, Ben Ferencz or Benjamin Ferencz, on your internet. It's all free. Anybody can copy, steal my books, do whatever they want. Translate it to your own language and sell it. I don't care what you do with it. If you have a better idea how to move toward a peaceful world, I welcome it. I welcome it. And I ask you to think about it. And I ask those distinguished representatives of the countries which were involved in the war. And I know what they suffered, but I saw the other reports. I lived the reports, and I saw them. And so I'm entitled to it. So let me close by just saying that what we are trying to do is difficult to do because it has never been done. But nothing new has ever been done until it was done. And we never had courts before. Now we've got a lot of courts. It's springing up all around. And it's good. But we can't have a court say it doesn't apply to me. It only applies to you. I mean, that doesn't fly. It's not a saleable product. It's got to apply, as was said at Nuremberg, equally to everyone. And when we do that, we have not yet started to work on the enforcement leg. We have three legs to the stool: the laws, the courts, and enforcement. The laws are just beginning, the courts are just beginning. Enforcement is nothing. We're on the two-legged stool. How do you respond to that? You straighten the two legs and you start to do the third one. It will take a time. I'm now going to start my 92nd year soon. And I will not live long enough to see the temple of the law that I'm describing. But it's up to the young people like you, relatively, even French home of great freedoms, pick up the torch and carry it because it's right. You must know in your heart that what I say is true. And if you do, act on it as best you can. I'm just one person with no status whatsoever. And I've been acting on it as best I can. If you, and particularly the young people, who I hope are listening to this somewhere, will do that, I'm confident that they will eventually have a healthy and better world than I had. Now, just one final point, and that is on the crimes against humanity. In my judgment, waging an illegal war, by that I mean a war in violation of the UN Charter and in violation of the definition of aggression as agreed upon by consensus recently and before. Fighting an illegal war in today's world is impossible without killing large numbers of innocent civilians. The ratio is at least 10 to 1. If you kill one man, it's murder. If you kill 1,000 children, it's not less than murder. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights lists murder as a violation of human rights. People have a right to live in peace and dignity without fear of being murdered. If they call it collateral damage or some other name to try to conceal it, it's at best negligent homicide and manslaughter. Crimes against humanity are the proper description for an illegal war. If we cannot bring illegal warfare, crime of aggression, to the court because the door has been locked, come in through the window. Call it a crime against humanity. Come in through another window if you have to. Do it in your national courts. But do it. It's not enough to make speeches. Do it. The people who sit here have the power to do it. And so I repeat that if you do, I hope, I am sure, you'll have a more humane world than the one that I was in obviously. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's great to have the pictures right here where the trial took place. I was here in this court, and I was prosecuting all of those who were sitting over there where that man is sitting, you know. And so it's a great replay of a great historic event, and being able to see the photographs of it are very moving.
Do you remember Nuremberg in a nice? Do you have nice remembrance from it, or is it rather like?
I remember Nuremberg very well.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no problem remembering. I have problem forgetting.
Тут должно быть много. И второе, что мне хотелось, чтобы было учтено, что мне казалось, что миллионы, которые погибли, они тоже свидетельствуют о том, что фашизм – это зло человечества, но больше никогда не должно повториться.
Вот когда вы находились в этом зале и видели действительно вот своими глазами тех, собственно, кто развязал эту войну, вот ваше личное отношение, сложно было удержаться от того, чтобы, не знаю, не разорвали, но вот просто...
Суд продолжался 10 месяцев, 10 дней, и каждый день был по-разному. Но самый страшный день – это когда показывали документальные фильмы, фашистские документальные фильмы. Они по-немецки скрупулезно все записывали, все документировали. Я прошел войну, видел разведки, но то, что я видел, меня не выдержал, мне пошли слезы. И встал, когда закончился фильм, то я встал в знак положения.
Вот мы сейчас можем только видео смотреть по картинке, что там происходило. Вообще, как вели себя, как преступники? То есть они признавали. Ну, вот,
ни один из преступников не признал своей вины. Единственное, после этих кинофильмов Ганс Франк, это генерал-губернатор Польши, между прочим, он заявил, если мы одержим победу, то мы поляков и украинцев пустим на фарш. Но он сказал, что это позор Германии на века, и он не может быть свят. А Штрихель, самый воевать с евреями против английской колонизации, тогда Палестина оккупировала Англию. Даже он по его учебе на учении были расстреляны миллионы евреев, а он хотел только своей жизни. Документальные фашистские статьи не выдерживали по сути полного ответственности. Даже внешне заметно. Франк, например, он говорил, что если мы победим украинцев, поляков пустим на фарш. И вот после этих он сказал, что это позор для Германии.
Okay, follow the yellow brick road here.
Pretty fancy. And I think they used the balcony in your day in the trial because I've seen photos taken from on high, kind of down on the road. There might have been a stage.
Many of those things can be movable. We were in a little restaurant we were at a trick of the day last week. How we thought we had the place all to ourselves, and the access to the end, and we were all down on the you might move to another table. They changed the whole atmosphere around.
Interesting.
Very
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Little sort of little partitions that had flowers in them.
Right.
Right. We're making some wall. The things are all around.
So the shows were, was it kind of dinner in here and then a performance, or
at the same place? Yeah.
In the same place, okay. And kind of tuxedo waiters and the whole fancy.
Fancy as much as it could.
Yeah.
Little shop one.
Right, right. Interesting. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, would you take one on my camera too? Yeah. Yes, that's good.
So what happened in here?
This is where they had the dinners and the dances during the Nuremberg trial.
Thank you. Very nice. Good, thank you.
On a picture of the two girls and their mother.
Okay, you win.
Yeah, I think some of the across the road. That's why you have those cutters on the front of the Jeep.
On the Jeep, yeah. Or some of the techniques, even in Africa, North Africa, they would sneak up on any guard posts as they were spread around. And you'd all have two soldiers in a guard post.
Mm-hmm.
They slit the throat of one.
Right.
See?
Right.
Next morning, of course, just have it. Well, there we go. Get scared.
Yeah.
You know, psychological warfare.
I mean, this was the piece, but there were a couple of killings every month during the trial. You know, just kind of random.
Yeah.
People would. You know, sometimes they were out drinking in the wrong place or whatever, but a couple of soldiers were killed every month through the whole trial, and Jackson would get memos about that. Actually, do you remember this incident? A Russian got killed in front of the Grand Hotel. He was Rudenko's driver. And Rudenko was furious about this. And he was allegedly killed by an American. And I don't think anything ever was determined.
A lot of strong opinions, there's no doubt about that.
Right.
Photovoltaic generators.
Yeah. We'll see if we can see
That is a. That is
the lights on.
Yeah. Also, shall I do it again?
No, no.
Yeah, a lot of lights on that.
So, please.
When Jackson was in his office.
We had an office that led into his office. He had the inner office.
Right.
And then he had an in-between office.
Was that
and then
Elsie?
an outstation. Well, Elsie was in the same office in the room with him.
Okay.
But they had to go through the opening office that I was in.
Okay. And where was Bill?
Bill would have been in the in-between time, or else in the in-between office, or, well, he wasn't there that much at the building. Mm-hmm. When he was, he'd be in the in-between or in the one room with his dad.
I see. Okay.
The inner office.
Jetzt links abbiegen.
We disregard this and drive on the historic.
Okay.
I visited him, and there was somebody else with me in the room. I said, let's try his jacket.
How'd you look with 4 stars?
Reminds you of something that happened at a funeral we had for a priest in Syracuse. And the bishop was at his chair, And they were ready to sit down, of course, then they took his mitre off his head in a rover, and the master of ceremonies gave it to one of the 4 altar boys who were there. The one who received the mitre, as soon as he got it, put it on his head.
In church,
in the church. Oh, he made everybody laugh.
Yeah.
There's a ring road crossing.
Achtung, Gefahrenstelle.
They did not have as many nice stores here when we drove back and forth.
Right. What was the space filled with? I mean, some of these are old buildings, but
no advertising.
Right. So it's just kind of.
Was there much commerce?
Not that I know of, no. There had to be some. I remember getting a briefcase made of leather here. And a case for pair of binoculars. But I don't want to be in another business.
In your role, were you ever asked to do errands for Justice Jackson?
No.
Did you have a lot of conversation with him?
Quite a bit, especially when we were driving. Was he and Elsie in the back? Yeah. We had a lot of things going on all the time. Of course, I didn't. When they were talking business in the back, I was just watching the road.
Now, would you be up here where I am? Yeah, right, Chuck.
I do. I said, where we are now.
Moritz, wissen Sie schon, dass du mit dem Auto vom Rippenblock wissen Sie da schon?
Yeah. He knows where he knows what the car is. Still exists.
Some collector of old automobiles has it.
I remember 75-gallon tank capacity, 3 miles per gallon, and a supercharger kicked in when you hit 40. The top folded down, the touring.
Here, the underground goes on top. This is on the bridge. Yes. What comes down later on.
And was the city, the town of Fuchs, the town center, something you ever went to, or no? Didn't have
Was there much traffic? I mean, just getting from the courthouse to the house?
Well, there was some, but most of it was military.
Right.
Again, I had no interest in it.
You guys would take alternate routes.
Different kinds of routes, yeah.
Were there checkpoints along the way? Did you have to know?
Wenn möglich, bitte in 200 Metern wenden, dann links fahren auf die B8.
I need it for the end, but please disregard what she tells us.
I have no idea what she's telling us.
She wanted you to take a left.
She doesn't know.
To go there faster over the motorway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the delightful skit where he has GPS.
So you see the old houses in Fürth. This is already the town of Fürth was only very.
He's so talented. One time I took my daughter to see the live performance at Town Hall of New York. Where he does a sort of a stint in New York every year, and to see him do a show live was incredible because it's very.
Round tour.
Some of the Jewish lawyers on the Jackson staff were quite involved in helping the Jewish refugees restart the synagogue here in Firth. Ben Kaplan, Sidney Kaplan, Joe Dano, and they sort of. Remember Johnny Benitez?
Oh, very much.
He seems to have been kind of king of the black market.
Yeah,
quite an operator.
I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
As long as I can get it.
Is that the guy from Syracuse, Binghamton? Is he from Upper New York?
I think so. He ended up running a restaurant in Washington. That was his career after. And he's the guy who did the records.
Yep.
An operator.
When I see the MASH TV show, the guy who was always the operator, Klinger, that always sort of makes me think of Benitez. I don't know if it's a fair parallel, but
Benitez is a lot larger though.
Benitez, oh yeah.
Bitte in 700 Metern links abbiegen in die Karte.
I mean, physically a big guy?
Yeah.
Portly, right?
Portly is a good word, yeah. They haven't cut down the speed though. DTO, big time operator.
There you go. See, this is the little river valley. There's a wonderful bike path, pedestrian path down the middle of this side of the city.
Bitte in 300 Metern links abbiegen in die Karlsburger Straße.
How big is for it? How big? Population?
Population about 100,000. 110,000 about.
Jetzt links abbiegen.
Jetzt links abbiegen. Okay, try it.
Now you're starting to listen to her.
Pardon?
Now you're starting to listen to her.
Yeah.
It's red? It's red?
Bitte,
Jetzt muss noch ein bisschen höher.
It's to the left.
In 200 Metern haben Sie das Ziel erreicht.
So this house, Dieter, hold on right here. This house number here, 50, Father, on our left, that was where Judge Biddle lived.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever...
We didn't connect to him, no.
Who lived there?
There was telephone.
The chief American, or a number of the judges, but Judge Biddle, who was the chief American judge. And this here is where the Soldan family, the owners of 33, live today, in the yellow wall.
Film 35?
33, the white.
33.
I remember that, 33. Good for you.
Erreicht. Das Ziel Lindenstraße 33 liegt auf der rechten Straßenseite.
And people forever.
I think the whole block basically was the property.
We can park here if you want.
So we park here?
Yeah, I agree.
Is it kind of a neighborhood?
No, nothing at all. You know, a guard post in front, and just we on the side.
Some of the lawyers lived across the street, down at the end of the block here. There was a house of them. There was another house here. Whitney Harris lived in that house there for a bit.
When they came to visit us, though, they didn't tell us
Right,
where
they
they
didn't.
were from.
You didn't know where they were coming from.
They could have come from the other side of the city, or.
And there was a mess out here for these guys in a house or something at the end of the block. They would go and get meals there. Did you have any? Because you had a cook. And
Yeah, the cook here, big back home.
Right.
Guard post would have been somewhere around here.
I know it's I want a picture of you with 33.
Or we just actually we just see a lot of ground space here.
Right.
The
You could walk in the yard. Because there was the house, and then there was a garden house, right? That kind of
a garden house. That's our. He dressed off the deer.
Okay.
And there was a volleyball court.
Right on that, to that side of the house. And then was it wooded on the property?
I think so. We never went there, but I think it was.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it was quite an estate.
It really was.
Yeah.
You know, they decided it was too large for just one house, so they tore it all down.
And did you have any sense of a family having been kicked out? Or
oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Which is a common practice whenever we liked your property. Goodbye.
Right. And their furnishings and so forth were what you used.
Exactly, yeah.
And your space was right inside the entrance? That's where
Correct, right. Right, I could see the guardhouse and everybody had to come to the front steps.
And were you just living on a cot? Or did you
Yeah,
actually have
it's sort of a soft bed, sort of a single bed.
Okay.
Small.
Okay. Were you warm enough?
Yeah. I don't remember any worries I had.
Okay.
The roof, the place that we had that in, obviously had been replaced. Right. 3 stories been come down too.
Right. Yeah, I'll show you some photos later on my computer, which are the house in the 1920s compared to the house in 1945, and you can see how it was short. So I think all of this was the property. It's all divided and built separate houses.
You actually never did a tour around the ground.
He did? He did not. I think he had a very sort of business-like, functional attitude. And I think he started, I don't know, maybe a little depressed. This was kind of hardship duty. Stuck in this place.
There was work to do.
There was work to do.
And he certainly had a focus on what he was trying to do. And his vision was...
And the owner actually was, in the army, in the government. He was a Nazi. So this is the kind of back edge of the house. I think, or maybe it even went further. You can see how it's all been subdivided and built. Now, when Jackson would entertain at the house, or would have staff over like Christmas or VIP guests for dinner at the house, would you be at your post?
Yeah.
Or at the door?
Yeah. Except that one time they come out and take a picture. And he pulled out a tie he got for Christmas.
Okay.
It's like when at the other bank we have the kitchen crew come in for applause.
I'm so lucky to have you to give me that feel for me. It is those kind of small incidents that really reveal the personality.
That's one thing that's really proud of.
It is recognized and it will always be recognized. That's probably part of the yard and the garden. I think.
This is where they're clearing out when we went. There's a little walk behind there.
I see, okay. And maybe volleyball court was kind of somewhere in this area?
I think maybe where the trees are, where the house was.
Okay.
Kind of garden shed or sit around kind of place.
Right.
Where he dressed out for deer.
Just hanging on the porch of the house? Is that
We did that and hung up and he dressed it. He wasn't just a bookman, he was
Oh, we have, but it's a woman there and they say, I have no time. Oh.
Okay. What about, do you remember springtime and summer, or is your memory sort of fixed in the winter months?
Well, we obviously went through a whole season.
Right.
Fall, winter, and spring. But I have no such impression.
Yep. Father Fuchs, were you mindful of your points?
Mindful of, oh yeah. But I ignored them. I was quite aware that I had a much better deal than the points offered.
Yep.
And Jackson became aware of that too then. Christmas time, you sent a letter home to Mom.
Right.
Thanking her for not pressing me to come home.
What was his initial reaction to having a bodyguard attached to him?
I guess he was pleased to have some security, so he didn't have to worry about the backside.
Canal
He accepted me very fully.
connecting River Rhine to Danube and
He was
Black
very
Sea.
fond of you. I mean, obviously, it was a great fit.
Yeah, I'm negligent in not having followed through more later in life. Our battalion commander, who really was the one who set her up, otherwise that wouldn't have been their goal. From my point of view, he obviously made a great choice.
Do you know why you were the kid he picked?
I don't know why, except we had.
I mean, were you the best marksman in your group or something?
We had no rifle practice. None of that over here. We would have not known that.
Okay.
I don't know what other army papers they would have got. I just wanted the replacements.
Right. Maybe because you'd had combat experience.
Well, that was under him. That was part of it.
Okay.
In fact, I think all of the soldiers who were white helmeted in the courtroom were given that honor because they'd been in combat. To be right there, the vengeance that they were sharing. See if these guys got theirs. And I decided already by then to talk to some chaplains and to Father William Walsh, who was at Georgetown at the time,
Right.
and also in the OSS. I definitely appreciate it.
And then you had lost touch with her for a long time, and in the recent past, she found you, or you found her?
Actually, she found me. She kept a letter that had my home address.
Right. Okay. Oh, right. And you're still in the same family home in Fulton. Okay. So that must have been quite incredible to get a letter from Blue.
And for me, there was an item in the letter that I was unaware of that I had written her in February 47. Our battalion commander, our first while battalion commander, had paid me a visit at the cemetery. I've long forgotten
Wait, was that the guy who had assigned you to Jackson?
John T. Corley.
Corley, right.
And I ran across a name in a magazine article from Catholic University, an alumni magazine, where he was commending General Allen, his first name right now, as being the greatest soldier he ever knew. It was a commendation by John T. Corley. So my experience was the greatest soldier.
Right, okay. And was he somebody who you saw during the trial year?
No. He didn't, made no connection at all.
Right. Where was he based? Still in?
He was, at that time, a lieutenant colonel, battalion commander of the 26th Regiment, 1st Division.
Okay. Located where? Were they still in Czechoslovakia?
They reached back to Landsbach and then Nuremberg.
Okay. So he was nearby, but didn't come to see the trial or something.
At one point, he would encourage me to take a in hindsight, I regret not having more contact with him afterwards.
Right.
Because they're not really such an important scene.
Do you know if he lived a long life?
Pretty well. An interesting thing, too, in an article that our diocesan paper had about our man in Nuremberg, a two-page spread there some years ago.
Okay.
And somebody down in Lafayette, south of Syracuse, picked up my reference to John T. Corley. And then they wrote me and said, our girls used to babysit for him.
Okay. So was he from the New York?
I didn't know that for sure.
Right.
Wherever they lived at the time.
Okay.
So in hindsight, you could really see, that things fell together.
Right.
Some would say by accident, some would say, well, the guy was steering the whole thing. good things happen out of these things. The bad things happen, we just blame ourselves.
Well, I like and admire how you can see, in some sense, the path's not taken, and the path you took, and be very happy with what you've done with your life.
It worked out to be an adventure that I would not even have imagined.
Nice you provide the sound effects, that's great.
those.
How cool is that?
It's too cold now, eh?
That's beautiful. Great. Thank you. Yeah, very British.
Hier, auf der rechten Seite.
Look familiar?
Yep.
Oh, daar heeft zo'n park.
Security. Alrighty.
Yeah. So, shall I drop you down here?
Daar begin je tevoren, heeft zo'n parkplaats. Und da ist jetzt ein Memoriam, ne? Ja. Hast du warten? Ja, warten auf ihn.
Wow.
And then you have to...
Ja, er war in der Schweiz in Basel bei Zürich. Und er kam in die Schweiz, weil er Tante, die war 100 Jahre alt.
This is at The Hague right now? Is this
Yes,
from
that's correct.
Yeah, send me by email or yeah. I prepared the file for the reimbursement of the first trip. Everything is in an envelope. I give to you or to Alexander? Alexander, okay. And the hotel now I pay and then I ask after. Is that right?
No, in this case I think...
Yeah, but the hotel said they had no instruction from the Nuremberg Stadt.
They said?
They said, for me, yeah, they should have, yeah, but they said for me, they had no instruction. It would be so easier if they could have. If they could, otherwise I do it and...
tomorrow, what are you doing
Why?
No, because we are planning to run this way with some other, just, I mean, it's more private, it's not...
Yes, and then I just, and I'm not going to anything else. I think I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't.
So I had to learn Latin. I didn't know Latin. 9 years studying theology to 1955. Mr. Jackson was very pleased that I was going to the seminary in maybe May or June, or at least of 46. I had told him what I was going to do. And so he was pleased, so he let me come back with him in August. And I was home in August, 15th of August. And in September I was at seminary already. He was very pleased. When I made my first Mass, his secretary came to my first Mass, an ordination and first Mass. If Jackson were still alive at that time, he would come to it. Okay. But he died in October of '54.
Okay, you have to go. I thank you very much. It was very interesting for me to meet you and to listen to you.
Very interesting experience. Yeah.
The other journalists are waiting, and so we have to stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mein Name ist Sekretär vom Presseamts der Stadt Siegfried Zelthilfe.
Präsentverstattung. Schön, dass Sie da sind. Ja, wir werden gleich beginnen. Wir haben uns Folgendes vorgestellt, dass nach einer kurzen Vorstellung jeder unserer 3 Gäste und Zeitzeugen
Er wurde in Mauthausen umgebracht. Seine jüngere Schwester, die war 29 Jahre alt im Jahr 42, hat er selbst am Kohlenhof verladen nach Itzpika. Das war ein Transport, von dem niemand zurückgekehrt ist. Wenn man dann diese Sachen gelesen hat, die Anführungszeichen Ärzte, Schlusszeichen, an anderen Menschen durchgeführt haben, dann sind es Eindrücke, die man Zeit seines Lebens nicht vergessen kann, die einen für das ganze Leben prägen, die dazu geführt haben, dass nach langen Diskussionen mit meinem Vater selig, der Deutschland nicht verlassen wollte, ich wollte nicht in Deutschland bleiben, aber ich war das einzige Kind meiner Eltern. Und mein Vater sagte, er könne nicht noch einmal von vorn beginnen, er hat sein Geschäft zurückbekommen. Ich bin deshalb dann nach Deutschland zurückgekehrt, 1946, nach meiner Entlassung aus der Armee, dass ich seit diesem Zeitpunkt mich bemüht habe, die Botschaft des Dritten Reiches.
After hearing again what we heard 65 years ago of these atrocities, I am humbled just to acknowledge that I was just a witness in the courtroom. I was just a plain infantry soldier, got wounded in the Hurtgen forest. I found out just 2 or 3 years ago that in the forest we had 30,000 battle casualties. But I had this special assignment by my battalion commander when I came back from the hospital in England. We ended up the war in Czechoslovakia. We pulled back to Ansbach to give more room for the Russians to make advance.
Ja,
And
okay.
so good.
Ja, okay, also er sagt, wenn ich jetzt...
Our regiment, 26th Infantry Regiment, got the assignment to police the SS prisoners who were at that time in Nuremberg, because there was so much rubble in the streets. Most streets were not passable, and so to clear out the streets, we were given that responsibility to supervise the prisoners. My battalion commander, John D. Corey, gave me the assignment. At that time I was on a special squad with the battalion headquarters, a bazooka team, and he said, "You want to make sure that nothing bad happens to this chief prosecutor when he comes. We have to provide security for him. You have the job 24/7 to make sure nothing happens to him." I was the only bodyguard he had for that year, from summer 45 to summer 46.
Als wir dann in Ansbach waren, da
Met to complete the plans for the trial, because they had to work to organize this international military tribunal. I was just an innocent bystander, you might say. I had no involvement except as an observer, but I was only 20 years old at the time. I had just been two semesters in the university, and so I had no background in law, but I just knew that it was a big opportunity, so I stayed on. I could have gone home for leaving the service, but I decided to stay on. Mr. Jackson was pleased enough with my staying on for him that at Christmas time in 45, he sent a letter home to my mother thanking her that she didn't insist that I come home.
Wir sind in der Vorbereitung auf diesen Prozess damals gerade mal 20 Jahre alt und habe eigentlich nur relativ unschuldig daneben gestanden als Beobachter. Ich hatte 2 Semester studiert an der Universität, aber ich hatte keinerlei Vorkenntnis in Jura. Ich habe aber gespürt, dass dies eine große Gelegenheit war.
We had what you call the first floor. Is when we had an office. I think it was number 210. Jackson had three rooms. Everybody who came to visit him in his office here at the courthouse had to go through the room where I was to get to his rooms. We lived at Firth Dambach, 33 Lindenstrasse, and there was a guard post on the road, and I had a guard particularly in my position right in the opening of the house, where I had windows seeing everybody coming in. The courtroom itself, Jackson was there perhaps half, maybe better than half of the time. Wherever he was, I was. And the court proceedings were, for the large part, very boring. Except for the incidents, as Mr. Hamburg was saying here, all the kind of atrocities and injustices that were brought forth. I can remember.
Can I just, so I don't forget anything?
For the deaths in the Nazi concentration camp of 90,000 people. All of the accused had plenty of reason for being there, and my overall impression of the trial was that it was very fair. The accused had all the advantages of all the 4 countries that were trying them. They were better off in their position than if they were either French or German or English or American, because the 4 countries that tried them gave them the advantages that each country had in their trial. It was an eminently fair trial. And that was Jackson's purpose, as far as I understand, that the world can see that it was not just the vindication of the one who conquered to get rid of them. At first, I know the Russians, the Soviets, and the English would like to just go out and shoot them all. But Jackson was very strong in saying we must offer the world an opportunity to see the wrongness, and also following that, the appropriate punishment for wrongness, and to follow the rule of law. He had a very good worldwide picture of how people needed to see that people are responsible for their actions, and that we ourselves as government leaders are responsible for our actions, and that's where his opening statement said it so very well.
Just a couple of words, not to hold you too long from visiting this exhibition. We are here in the attic, and we have realized over the last couple of decades, so to say, that there's an extreme interest in learning more about the Nuremberg trials, and that more and more groups and people, tourists, whatever, wanted to visit the room. And that was not possible because the room, the actual courtroom, is still a courtroom for the Bavarian justice system. So after the 60th anniversary celebration, which we had in 2005, the idea was born to have some sort of museum exhibition attached to this courtroom. And we found this attic, which was unused and which could be sort of renovated and could be the place for a little exhibition explaining what was going on from the 20th of November 1945 until the 1st of October 1946 in the main trial against the German war criminals, and after that in this room also for the 12 subsequent trials which took place until the 12th of April 1949. So quite a period of time, an important period of time which we tried to cover here. So the problem with this exhibition is that there is not an awful lot of space, as you can tell. It's an attic up here, and it's only really four or three rooms that were available for hosting this exhibition. Therefore, for example, all these posters are sort of, not in a, how do you say, orthogonal, straight way,
very angled.
Slanted, angled, as you say. Just to spare a little, you will then have a description of the judgment of Nuremberg and the reception of the judgment of Nuremberg in the German media, in the international media, amongst the German population. And then this exhibition continues on the left-hand side, and you will be led through a little aisle where you can learn more about the Tokyo Tribunal, which was sort of a parallel tribunal that took place in Tokyo to prosecute those who were responsible for
shot in a movie format someplace, and I just didn't know where to put it.
Right. When you're not recording, let me know.
I believe it's around the time of Goering's testimony in March of 46.
Wait, that's you?
That's one of yours right there. Same dark hair.
Martha was at the time. Martha.
Morris from Brooklyn.
That's so neat.
Well, I bet